A single hallway, the walls yellowed with cigarette smoke and neglect, echoes with the steps of a little boy. He carries something fragile in his chest, a hope, a promise, a secret. In the pale glow of the refrigerator light, he counts the coins in his mother's hand. 1 dime, 1 nickel, 1 penny, each clink a silent prayer. Outside, the argues behind thin apartment walls rattle the ceilings. Inside, the silence crushes the floorboards. The boy folds into the couch cushions and listens to the distant roar of dreams he never asked for. But that boy would one day stand on the world's largest stage and whisper 3 words that would change everything. I am Iron Man. In the flaring lights of Hollywood, there are actors, and then there is Robert Downey Jr. He did not simply rise to stardom. He rose from his own ashes. He climbed from his own chaos. Born April 4, 1965, in the heart of Manhattan's messy brilliance, he was not a child of comfort. He was a child of confusion, of smoke-stained walls and broken promises. His father, Robert Downey Sr., a brilliant but broken underground filmmaker, made art out of escape, turned rebellion into frames of celluloid, and in doing so, he handed his son his first camera, his first scene, his first scripted breath. His mother, Elsie Ann Ford, with quiet eyes full of louder sorrows, tried to balance auditions, overdue bills, and the weight of breathing in a home that had zero margin for error. From that tangle of desperation and creation, Robert emerged, a boy whose playground was film sets, whose babysitters were actors, whose lullabies were lines and rehearsals. He learned to clap on cue before he learned to pray. Here is not simply the story of a Hollywood star. It's the story of a man who took his wreckage and shaped it into wings. The story of broken rooms, broken suits, broken selves, and how one actor dared to forge himself into an idea that even the most shattered man can still save the world. In 2008, the camera found him in a red and gold suit, but the film didn't just cast a hero, it cast a soul. When Robert breathed, "I am Iron Man," the screen cracked open, and the world watched a phoenix ignite. The gamble by Marvel Studios paid off beyond imagination. This wasn't a comeback, it was a resurrection. When he stood on stage and held the golden statue, the applause cracked open years of silence. He thanked his terrible childhood and my beautiful wife. In that moment, the kid counting coins in the dark finally got the validation he didn't know he needed. After the crescendo of red carpets and roaring crowds, Robert stopped chasing echoes. He cooked breakfast. He taught his son guitar. He built a home out of sunlight, reclaimed wood, and the quiet hum of belonging. This was the moment the armor came off, and the man underneath finally stood. April 4th, 1965, Manhattan. A tiny apartment in Greenwich Village, walls yellowed with cigarette smoke, floor scattered with scripts and unpaid notices. The refrigerator half empty, the laughter even emptier. Robert John Downey Jr. was born not into comfort, but into confusion and creation. His father was making underground films. His mother was battling to keep the lights on. As a child, he watched his parents argue through thin walls, the air filled with anger and fear. He wondered what he had done wrong. He looked for kindness in the spaces between fists. His sister Allison, older by a year and a half, learned to rock him to sleep when the house could no longer pretend. The movie sets became his playground. Cameras were his companions. Actors, his babysitters. But the world behind the lens wasn't gentle. The home was cracked. Every move was packing and unpacking. 1 month in Greenwich Village, the next in a basement flat with no hot water. Boxes never opened. When he was 6, his father made a terrible decision. In an effort to feel close, to show love, he let his young son share in his reckless habits that were already destroying the man. What meant affection became the beginning of the boy's battle with pain and confusion. Years later, Robert would reflect, "My father thought he was showing love. I thought he was showing me the world." At 12, the house finally shattered. The door slammed. His mother's perfume faded down the hallway. His sister cried behind him. Divorce was the end of that chapter. The boy who once believed movies could fix everything learned that even the best stories sometimes end before the credits. He followed his father to California, not out of hope, but because he didn't know where else to go. It wasn't freedom. It was another kind of exile. He slept on couches that smelled of dust and film reels, lived nights without dinner, days without direction. He dropped out of school at 17 to chase acting, the only thing that made sense. Acting wasn't a career, he later said. It was survival. The camera rolled and he became someone else, anyone else but himself. He turned his suffering into fuel, his shame into art. Each role carried the weight of those freezing nights, those wet pavements, that whisper of a boy promising himself, "One day they'll remember my name." The early 1980s, he arrived in New York with a torn suitcase, several second-hand shirts, and stubborn belief. There was no inheritance. There was no safety net. Only art and hunger. He took what work he could, sweeping stages, serving coffee, hauling props, rehearsal rooms full of other dreamers, tiny theaters, college basements, subway tunnels, the sound of his own breathing louder than any applause he'd yet earned. The winter of 1983 was merciless. The city froze him to the bone. Jacket too thin, shoes too worn. He spent nights walking Soho just to stay warm, counting coins in his pocket, whispering them like prayers. In 1985, he joined the cast of Saturday Night Live for one of its worst seasons. Critics were cruel. For someone who nearly sank into obscurity, the humiliation cut deeper than any cold. Rejections piled. Casting directors said, "Too strange, too intense." But he refused to give up. He took small films, Less Than Zero, 1987 being one. He played the ghost of every nightmare he had known. Privileged youth destroyed by their own vices. Off-screen, his darkness was creeping home, but on film, he was undeniable. The boy who once counted coins under streetlights had made it to the screen. Not a star yet, but proof that hunger, heartbreak, and resilience can forge something stronger than gold. Then came 1992. Chaplin. He transformed himself into a legend. Critics gasped. Academy nomination. BAFTA award. At 27, he carried the weight of a century's genius. But success came at a cost. The movie barely earned back its budget. He felt broke and hollow. Holding the award in his lonely hotel room, he realized, success doesn't fix the cracks. It only makes them shine. From 1993 to 1996, he ran from set to set, chasing roles, chasing meaning. Films piled though nothing stuck. The sparkle in his eyes dulled. The charm began to fracture. It didn't happen overnight. The spiral was quiet. Champagne after a wrap. A drink to forget exhaustion. But the drink became the cage. The camera that once liberated him now captured his emptiness. By the mid-1990s, the world tilted. He missed calls, skipped sets, disappeared. What began as bad nights turned into habits. Dependency bleeding into every part of his life. Directors whispered, studios sighed. By 1996, after another catastrophe, a drive gone wrong, Hollywood's golden boy became its pariah. Courtrooms instead of red carpets. Judges tired, looked at a man sabotaging himself. Clinics, rehab centers. Each time he swore it would be the last. Each time it wasn't. "I wasn't trying to rebel," he later said. "I was trying to feel normal." In 1999, his contracts vanished. Earnings evaporated. The name meant nothing. He stared at the reflection of a man he no longer recognized. "It was like standing in a house I built myself," he said, and realizing the door had no handle. The lights went out. No studio would touch him. No insurer would back him. He was broke, tired, branded beyond redemption. Some nights he sat by the window of a small rented room, watching headlights fade across the street. Applause of his past returned as faint whisper. Sweet, mocking, impossible to forget. But a spark remained. Somewhere between regret and resolve, it glowed. He wasn't fighting to be famous anymore. He was fighting to be free. Free from the noise. Free from the mask. And that quiet fight, unseen by cameras, was the start of something sacred. When the cell doors closed behind him, the noise of fame stopped. Real quiet. No red carpets. No cameras. Time to think. Time to ache. Time to understand what it meant to be alone. He said the hardest part wasn't losing everything. It was realizing he had built the walls himself. When you've lost everything, he said, you finally see what's worth finding. Then someone believed in him. Mel Gibson, a friend who held faith when studios didn't. He paid Robert's insurance bond, helped him land a role in The Singing Detective, 2003. It wasn't charity, it was trust. Robert showed up clean, focused, present. Each line carried the weight of redemption, not for a character, but for himself. From 2003 on, Robert rebuilt. He woke early, trained daily, meditated, found discipline like prayer. His circle shrank. No more parties, no more chaos, just work and reflection. Films like Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, 2005, and Zodiac, 2007, glowed not because of boxes they went on to fill, but because they were proof he hadn't just survived. He was evolving. In 2008, the universe turned. Iron Man, a role made for him, or perhaps the other way around. That year, he didn't just play Tony Stark. He became him. He didn't wear the suit. He embodied its confession. The film exploded. The empire of Marvel rose. Robert's career turned into a mythic arc. From 2008 onward, he reigned. 10 films in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Over $14 billion worldwide. He joked later that the suit had taught him, armor is only as strong as the man inside it. He asked himself, what happens when the hero stops being the mask and starts being the man? Yet even then, success didn't fix the man. The body remembers what the soul once forgot. He trained in Wing Chun, meditated, changed diet, sought ritual. He began waking up, listening to silence instead of chasing noise. The explosions around him couldn't drown out the quiet ache of legacy, of aging, of what's left when the stunt lights dim. In 1984, on the set of Firstborn, he met Sarah Jessica Parker, two 18-year-olds in New York, fearless, dreaming that love could outrun gravity. For 8 years they lived in a small apartment, movie posters on the walls, burnt coffee, laughter, and longing. She stayed when the rent was late. She waited through the silence. In 1991, she left quietly. No fight, just a morning sun, her suitcase, the note. Please get well. She broke my denial, he said. Love couldn't save him, but it still taught him how to begin again. Then came Deborah Falconer. Met in 1992, married quickly. 1993, their son Indio was born. God is giving me another chance, Robert said. He held his baby and believed fatherhood would silence the chaos. For a while, it did. But old habits, old demons, returned. Divorce came quietly in 2004. He lost his wife, his son, his name, That was his bottom. But rock bottom became holy ground. In the stillness, he built something new. In 2005, he met Susan Levin, 30 years old, calm, grounded. He was 38, messy, scarred, wary. She said no twice. He showed up clean, steady, honest. Their first months were ordinary. Home-cooked dinners, long walks. 2005, they married. Tattoo on his arm, Susie Q. 4 words she said once when he doubted himself. Don't disappear again. She became his anchor. When the nights whispered old fears, she looked at him and reminded him who he wanted to become. Then, in 2023, he starred in Oppenheimer. Critics called it poetic justice. He won the Academy Award, the Golden Globe, the BAFTA, but the true victory wasn't the statue. It was the peace in his eyes. He quipped on stage, "I'd like to thank my terrible childhood and my beautiful wife for teaching me what love really means." After end credits and statues, he came home. No headlines, no campaigns, just 4 a.m. breakfasts, barefoot in the garden, listening to his son breath. The house wasn't grand, but it was alive. He watched his estate in Malibu, the eco-mansion above the Pacific, with solar panels, reclaimed wood, pets, and laughter. He traded Ferrari for vintage Mustang and electric Porsche. Luxury, yes, but tempered by responsibility. Money for him became less about empire, more about purpose. At 60, the reflection told a new story. Soft jawline, wiser eyes, movements slower but surer. He carried in his bones the history of each fall. Fatigue uninvited, memories unannounced, mild neuropathy, a nervous system still learning calm. My body is a map of everything I did wrong and everything I survived, he said. He honored the scars, he honored the survival. Every morning, a ritual of movement. Wing Chun, meditation, gratitude lists. I used to wake up chasing noise. Now, I wake up listening to silence. His story no longer revolved around fame. It became about awareness. Through his Footprint Coalition, he invested in green tech, mental health programs, robotics for the planet. He often told young actors, "You can rebuild everything, but only if you start with your heart." He said, "Peace isn't boring. It's the best special effect I've ever experienced." He still acted, but selectively. His upcoming roles, fewer, deeper. Stories of redemption, empathy, human connection. "I used to play men who wore armor," he said. "Now, I want to play men who don't need it." When the world saw him walk on stage for Oscar #1, it wasn't just applause they gave him. It was relief. It was hope. It was redemption. He had become not the hero in the suit, but the man outside it. If this story stirred something in you, if you've ever fallen, lost your way, or been told you're finished, then let this be your reminder. Your fall is not final. Your pain is not wasted. And your life is never too broken to become beautiful again. If you're here with me, hit like, hit subscribe, and tap follow. Because this isn't just one man's narrative. It's a beacon for anyone brave enough to keep going. Stay kind. Stay strong. Stay grateful. Because if Robert Downey Jr. has shown us one thing, it's that the greatest comeback is the one we fight for when no one's watching. Thank you for watching. And remember, you're not done yet.